Alright, today we talk about 7 books I wish I read sooner, and I think I wish I read these books sooner for different reasons. I will hopefully explain those to you, but I just want to talk about books that like really made things click for me, that really inspired me, that I was looking for these books for so long, and hopefully this gives you that recommendation or that suggestion that you've always been looking for, because it's really hard to describe what you want to read, but when you find it, you find it, and these are books that just clicked with me, that were exactly what I was looking for, that were exactly what I was hoping to find, and I found them. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing is Psychocybernetics, and the reason I wish I read this book sooner was because when I really first started getting back into reading, I wouldn't say my life was in shambles, but like I certainly knew I had to change the way I thought about things. I certainly knew I wanted to become a more measured person, a more rational person, a person that's more in control of themselves. And, I started reading a bunch of self-help books. And the problem with self-help books is they all kind of repeat the same kind of things. They all kind of water down philosophy, whether it's Stoicism, whether it's Emerson, whether it's, whatever other self-help kind of things you can pull from philosophy, but very few of them offer actually practical things that you can apply into your life that can really benefit you, that you can't get in those philosophical texts. And Psychocybernetics is really the rare exception. It talks about how we kind of form who we are in society, how the way we project ourselves, the way that we view ourselves, the way that we internalize what happens to us really affects our lives, and how if we don't like the life we're living right now, we can go about changing it. And there's all sorts of techniques in this book. There's all sorts of things that it points you to, that it guides you to. There's a lot of ways of reframing success. That was a really big one for me. It's like whenever you have some sort of failure, see it as a stepping stone to the goal that you want to go to, because now that you have that experience, now you can reevaluate things. You don't really know where you stack up until you fail, and once you fail, then you can go back to the drawing board and see where you need to improve, see what you need to realign, and guide yourself down the path that you really want to go. And it's such a good book. It's one of the few self-help books I think is actually worth reading, and I think can actually give you some practical, beneficial things. And yeah, it's a rare exception that I would suggest to read this self-help book in particular. Um, Next one is Rilke's Book of Hours. Rilke, I don't quite know what is so amazing about Rilke, but there's just something that speaks to my heart, there's something that speaks to my soul. When I find myself writing, I think the closest thing that I can find to what I'm trying to say is Rilke's writing. And it's frustrating because it seems like he says so much with so little, and he's able to capture exactly what we all feel, what we all experience in our heart. And the only thing that somewhat rivals this is Rumi, perhaps. I think Rumi is the only other poet that I've stumbled upon that can kind of carry the same weight with his words, and the same hope, and the same love, and the same spirit, and the same overflowing of existence and cycle of things. And just I really just urge you to go pick up Rilke. It's really unfortunate that I feel like the most popular book by Rilke is Letters to a Young Poet. I found myself enjoying it, but I didn't find myself enjoying it as much as the Book of Hours. And this book actually has a really interesting connection with Nietzsche. So we all know Friedrich Nietzsche. I hope you do. Even if you just know he has a really good mustache, or a funny looking mustache, whatever. Just know him as the mustache guy, the large fluffy mustache guy. I feel like that's the easiest way to just picture what I'm talking about. But Thus Spoke Zarathustra is often considered his greatest work, and it really is some of the greatest philosophical arguments that I've read. Maybe you've read something better, but to me it's one of the standout pieces that I have ever studied. And it's interesting because he was inspired to write this after he proposed to this woman. Her name is Salome. I forget her first name, but he proposed to this woman. She said no. She rejected him. She thought he was immature. So this was really his attempt to show how mature he was, show how great of a writer he was. And she all but inspired this book. She also inspired the Book of Hours because she was the editor for the Book of Hours. She kind of took Rilke under her wing and kind of mentored him and kind of taught him a lot about the ideas of God and the ideas that you see in these poems. And she's a really interesting figure. I need to find a book on her that I can read, maybe a biography or something, or maybe even her own writing, because that connection's so interesting and it's so weird. Like, you wouldn't expect Rilke and Nietzsche to have such a, like, really not that large degree of separation. All right, the next thing is ficciones, or I think that's how you say it. I hope that's how you say it. I don't speak any other language. That's the next thing I probably have to go learn. But Jorge Luis, I don't know how you say that either, but Borges. Borges is everything that I was looking for in an author, because Borges is able to come up with stories that are even impossible to think about. That's the easiest way to describe Borges. And what do I mean by this? Well, a very simple story that describes this is he creates this one-sided coin, essentially, this one-sided disc. And how does that even make sense? How do we even begin to approach these things? But what Borges seeks to do with this sort of storytelling, with this sort of fiction, is he really wants us to call into question life, existence, the labyrinth, and perception all at once, and dreamlike nature to life. Somewhat like Gurdjieff, in the sense of how we are all somewhat asleep and we are all somewhat machines, and kind of sort of break perception. And there's a lot of really good short stories in this work. It's just a collection of short stories. I think the best one, at least to me, is the first one. It's really it's a very convoluted plot, but it's a very simple story. Like, not much happens, but this man is trying to track down a journal entry from a book, from an encyclopedia, and it's just like an endless sort of pursuit of a certain text that has been lost to history, but it's about a secret society, or a long lost society, or a ancient society that was so adept with the imagination that they could create things through pure thought. And it's just very interesting. It's the kind of stuff that I just jump at. And yeah, I really just urge you to read Borges. The next thing we have is William Blake. Blake, to this day, is my favorite author. I think so much of what Blake embodies and so much of what Blake talks about is what gets me excited to read, what gets me excited to create, what gets me excited to wake up every day and experience life. Simply put, William Blake is the embodiment of imagination and the embodiment of creative spirit. And whether you're reading just a simple poem like the works from the Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, you can see a depth and a heart to it. Or if you're reading a somewhat eternal epitaph to whatever is going to rise from the ashes of our current age, which is the marriage of heaven and hell, I think you are going to really, really, really enjoy the poems. And Blake is interesting because he's so much more than a writer, but at the same time, his writing is so profound, because when Blake would write stuff, he would also engrave these into metal tablets, into copper tablets, and at the same time, he would etch on the edges and in the margins all of these really intricate drawings, like this one right here. And really, his drawings and his poetry combined to create some really almost mythic or eternal kind of poetry. And anything about me, I'm very interested in the sort of idea of ideas that repeat throughout history, ideas that humanity can't seem to get over, and ideas that are somewhat etched in stone with the experience of man. And William Blake embodies all of that, and I really wish I picked him up earlier for that reason, because I feel like a lot of my studies were searching out for a voice like Blake, and I finally found it in his writing. Next thing we have is Walden, and this is not as intense of a realization that I came from reading this, but what Walden teaches you is something that most people will never understand. And if you don't understand it, then you'll never be able to be happy. And that's really the timeless nature to Walden. And what I mean by that is Walden follows the story of Henry David Thoreau going out to live in the woods for over 2 years. And basically, the cathartic experience that he gets through this is because he is able to break his life down to the bare minimum. Because he's able to live his life and not have excess, and have exactly what he needs, and be able to appreciate exactly what he needs. And why this is so significant is we live in such a consumerist age. We live in an age where everybody wants more and more and more and more. And we live in a day and age where people will sacrifice having enough for the sake of having more and not appreciate what you have, and you could never be happy not appreciating what you have. The easiest and the simplest way to find happiness is to be content with what you have, is to express gratitude, is to express appreciation. And any moment that you find yourself feeling sad, you can always look at your life and you can always see that there's people that have it a lot worse. I don't think that's a really good way of doing it, but if that's all you have, then that's all you have. And the more we are able to express gratitude, the more we are able to break our life down to the bare minimum, the more we are able to, in some way, find some sort of fulfillment and some sort of happiness in our lives. And it's such an important message, especially for today. And this is when it really started to click with me. This is when it really started to kind of enter into my brain, this emphasis on gratitude, this emphasis on appreciation, and this ability to be happy on a daily basis is really what I picked up from Walden. The next thing we have is In Search of the Miraculous by P.D. Ouspensky, and this is the teachings of G.I. Gurdjieff. I hope I said that right. I probably didn't, but he'll forgive me. They're both dead. It's fine. But In Search of the Miraculous is one of those books that you read and so many dots are tied together. Because Gurdjieff has one of the most interesting systems. Gurdjieff is one of the most interesting mystics or philosophers or spiritual gurus, whatever. Gurdjieff kind of defies genres. He kind of defies titles. He's his own kind of character. He's a very interesting person. And essentially, it's Ouspensky laying out Gurdjieff's systems as his top student. And it's really funny because Ouspensky didn't publish this till the end of his life, and when he published it, Gurdjieff said, "Before this I hated this man, now I love this man." So it just shows you that he was able to outline Gurdjieff's system in a very effective way. But there's a few things that I really took away from this, and there's a few things that I'm super fascinated by. I feel like Gurdjieff's going to be somebody that I study on and off for a very long time and perhaps adopt even more of his stuff. But so far what I've taken from Gurdjieff are the ideas that man is a machine. I mentioned this earlier, but man is a machine, we are all asleep, and it is our duty to wake up. And there's this very interesting idea that he has as well, is that man isn't born with a soul, he has to earn it. And these are somewhat contradictory to things that we believe now. These are somewhat contradictory to the collective unconscious way to approach these sets of beliefs. And really what he's trying to say is that so much of our day is unconscious. So much of our day is done through habit, and it's not necessarily habit that serves us. And when you are unconscious to habit, then you are controlled by the whims of chance. Then you're controlled by the law of accident. But when you're able to wake up to what really life is about, which is awareness and focus and actually attentive, conscious movement and conscious action and conscious going throughout our day on a daily basis, then you are able to take back control of your life, and you're able to earn your soul. You're able to individuate yourself. You're able to overcome the vices that you have and the things in your life that you have not been able to overcome yet. And how do we begin doing this? Because what I said is all these grand words and all of these very somewhat esoteric ideas and somewhat complicated ideas, but how do we go about doing this? And simply what I grasped from Gurdjieff and what I grasped from Ouspensky is that you first need to observe yourself. And what I mean observe yourself is, what are your thoughts going to? What are the actions you're doing? What are you unconsciously doing? So like even right now I'm looking down. I'm looking at other books. I'm looking off into the distance to collect my thoughts and say what I need to say. Why am I doing that? Why is that something that I'm doing? And to analyze those things, analyze those habits. Why am I moving my hand right now? Why am I not looking into the lens? Like, what am I doing unconsciously that I am not controlling? And once you start observing yourself without judgment, then you can start being conscious when you do things. And what I mean conscious when you do things is that I'm looking into the lens right now. I'm pointing right now. I'm talking about Gurdjieff right now. I'm talking about self-observation right now. I'm aware of what I'm doing. How much of our day are we not aware of what we're doing? And it's a really important concept. You know, you might read, but you might drift off into other things and you forget that you're reading. You might be on a walk and you're walking and you forget that you're walking. How often are we aware of what we're doing at all times, and how can we start building this awareness? And what you'll notice is the more that you do it, the easier it becomes, and the easier it becomes, the more you're in control of your day. The easier it is to have a will over yourself, the easier it is to control the habits and the things that you do that waste your own time, that waste your own life, that waste your own potential. So with that said, we'll get into the last thing. The last thing is The Divine Comedy by Dante. I didn't think I was going to like this. I genuinely thought I was not going to enjoy Dante. Very, very, very egotistical of me. I'm shocked that I was so stubborn. I'm shocked that I was like, so I thought I wouldn't say I thought it was better than it, but I was like, it's just not going to be my thing. I know it's a great work of art, but it's not going to be something that I resonate with. But the reason why Dante is so relevant 600 years later is because he talks about something so eternal. He talks about the entire existence of life, going to the depths of hell to reclaim your soul, to go back to the light and be redeemed. What is this? This is the hero's journey. Very simply, it's the course we all take in life. It's facing challenges. It's being able to deal with those challenges. It's being able to deal with our own damnation and be able to come out on the other side better. Be able to make the world a better place. And you know, if you read Dante, you can get absolutely anything else that was ever written. Any other philosophical idea, any other important theological idea, anything that could ever hope to be gained, any wisdom that you could ever hope to come to is in Dante. And I am so mad at myself that I did not pick it up earlier, because it is genuinely some of the finest writing I've ever read, and I didn't even read it in its original language. And I cannot imagine how good it is in Italian. I cannot imagine how perfect and how amazing this writing is. And I promise you, if you read The Divine Comedy, you will understand exactly what I'm saying, because it is the pinnacle of art. Perhaps you could put Homer up there, perhaps you could put Virgil up there, perhaps you could put Blake up there, or Shakespeare, or Wordsworth, or I don't even know who's in that caliber of writer. Maybe Joyce, if you're very, very pretentious. But there's very few writers that could ever rival exactly what Dante did. And it's something that you have to experience for yourself. It's something that you have to read for yourself, because whatever I hope to say about it, whatever I hope to explain about it, I could never do it justice. And it's just something you have to experience for yourself. And it's just something that you read and you find, oh wow, like art is truly perfection. That this is the closest thing to actual experience of the infinite, actual experience of the peak of civilization and the peak of humanity. And I don't say those words lightly, and I truly believe everything I just said. Maybe you disagree with me, but to me, in reading Dante, you find some of the greatness of humanity, and you find everything that you could hope to gain through experiencing this art and through understanding what we can do as human beings. I don't know if I could say any more. I don't know if I could say any better words. I don't even know if anything I just said made sense, but that's just how moved I am by reading Dante, and I really hope you pick it up at some point. I really hope you have the same experience. These other books too, they're all really good, but I feel like I sold them all short by what I just did and the words I just said about Dante. But it truly is the case. And yeah, with that said, these are 7 books that I wish I read sooner. Hopefully you pick some up of these. Maybe you think about books that you feel the same way about it. And if you do think of books that you wish you read earlier, please recommend them to me. I'm always interested into what really moves people and the books that really goes about changing the way we view life as a whole. And I think those are the books that I'm fascinated by. So please send them my way if you get a chance, either in the comments or there's a link where you can write it down, where I'm gonna find it easier somewhere in the description. But with that said, peace out. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you in the next one. That's all I got for you today. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing more videos like this, or I don't know if I'm going to splice in shorter reviews. I'm kind of working through a process. I should probably schedule it out. I should probably like get down to a better system of doing it. But right now I'm just having fun making these. So yeah, let me know if you'd enjoy this. Let me know if you didn't. It's all good the same. I love you all the same. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.